didn't say it would be easy. Nobody said you would not go through trouble. But the promise is that I will be with you always, even to the end of your breakthrough. Help me say thank you to the Christ Universal Temple Ensemble and Miss Sandra Bowens. Nah, you gonna say thank you better than that. They ministered better than you saying thank you just now. Woo! Amen. Thank you. One of the things that I love about this teaching is that it equips us to not only be successful in our lives, but how many of you know that sometimes the success only comes after the storm? And so it's great value and great mercy and great compassion in the omniscience of God to place at the feet of your soul something that will equip you to know how to walk the path even when there is no light lighting the path. And to be able to remember that if there is no light on the outside, there is still light on the inside, because the sun, S-O-N, is always shining. Just before I get going, I feel good. How y'all doing? Y'all good? Thank you for being here. I love you. I love you. I love you. It's always good to be with you. It's always good. So let me do this first, and then let me do that. I'm multitasking here. I'm multitasking. So first, help me say thank you. We have some guests with us today. Some guests, but some are our people. The ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Inc. Tau Psi Zeta chapter are in the house. Ladies, stand up. Let us love you. Now, God bless you. Thank you for being with us today. Feel free to come back anytime. We've been for the last couple weeks working from guidelines for a master. Thank you to everyone who took the time to purchase this book. It's actually doing really well. I was told earlier this week that it's in the 3,000 level nationally. Right, so they say this is just what they told me. Most books by authors of any stripe, any ilk, are in the millions. This book is in the 3,000 range. So that's attributed to you. God bless you, and I attribute it to the fact that I hope it's a good read. It's been blessing me. I hope it's a blessing to you too. And so today I want to work with step 10. I haven't really been able to dig in, so we didn't walk through all the steps, as you obviously know, and we transition into anniversary next week. And so I want to, on today, just pick up one of the steps that is important to you, and all of the steps are important. Say all the steps are important. All of the steps are important, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to help us either be reminded or to learn anew the value of step 10. Step 10 is, somebody tell me what step 10 is. All right, so that sound like 15. That sound like 15 people. And so if there are more than 15 people in the room with the book, provided there are more than 15 people in the room with the book, just say again what step 10 is. If you have the book, it's on page 153. You got the book? Yes. So what's step 10? Fill the world with happiness, the law of giving. That's right. That's right, right on. All right, thank you. So step 10 is a reminding us that there are mental and spiritual laws at work, and those mental and spiritual laws require that we work in accord with the law of how creation works if we intend to get the most out of what it is we're doing. Is that right? And so there are always mental and spiritual laws at work. Whether you see it or not, a spiritual law or a mental law or laws just in general are always at work. You may not see the law of gravity until you trip and fall. But as you are picking yourself up and dusting yourself off, you can rest assured that while you are blessed and blessed indeed, God did not keep you from the law as the law was working. So it is with the law of giving and receiving. There are mental and spiritual laws at work. Remember, and put this in your notes, that the law is the faculty of the mind that holds every thought and act strictly to the truth of being. The law is the faculty of mind that holds every thought and act strictly to the truth of being, meaning that the law is always taking some measure and account from you as to how it is supposed to act on your behalf. The law is always allowing you to inform it through what you think and what you do about how it is supposed to respond in kind to you. Do know that the law is intended for your benefit, and so the law, the way that God moves in the universe, is always working on your behalf. Never think for a moment that the law is not working on your behalf, because it is only moved, say only moved. It is only moved by the will of your mind and what you think and do. So the law is never working against you. The law is always only working on your behalf, because as you've heard me say before, God assumes through the law that you know you would only think about stuff that you want. The all-knowing God assumed that because it is all-knowing, and it made you in its image and likeness, and you are therefore all-knowing, that you would know best how to work the law so that you could experience what you are here to experience. And so there is never anything working against you. Even folks in DC can't work against you. I really want to stay right here. I want to go there, but I want to stay right here. I really do. Because there are always mental and spiritual laws, and these laws act in accord to the thoughts that you hold and the acts that you express. And it compares those thoughts and those behaviors strictly to the guidelines of truth, or to God as omniscience in you. What I'm really saying is, the way you think and the way you talk and the way you behave has to come up to the divine measure of what you are intended to be able to create. Because the divine pattern for creation, at the end of it, is that it will be good and very good. And so the law assumes that if you created it because it's good. Are you still with me? Yes. And so then, as we recognize that there are always mental and spiritual laws at work, we can also then come to terms with the fact that we are all entitled to the support of God's substance in everything to which we give our minds and our hands. You are entitled to the support of God's substance in everything. You are entitled to the support of God's substance in everything. Say everything. You are entitled, balcony believers, to the support of God's substance in everything. Say everything. To which you give your mind and your hands. Now, just so we're on the same page, what does everything leave out? So if everything leaves out nothing, then there is no thing that you think or do that is a waste. If everything that you do has value and importance and creative capacity, hear me, then there is no wasted thought and no wasted motion from you, because the creative universe assumes that you know how to create good. Are you still with me? Yes. And so then, if you are entitled to the support of God's substance, you are also then entitled to the boundless support and flow of God's good. You still with me? And so the best way to facilitate that flow is through how you give. Because the way that you give is the precursor for how you will receive. You still with me? And so as we are coming to be reminded about how it is you work the law, I just want to remind you that raising consciousness so that you can intelligently work the law is a lot like raising children. It's not all that different. Developing consciousness, developing the ability to intelligently apply the law that holds every thought and act accordingly is a lot like raising children. Sometimes with children, you have to remember that their entire life is built upon the decisions they make from both the parent and the child. Is that right? We have to remember that when we are raising children and building consciousness, it needs encouragement. We have to remember that when we are raising consciousness, just like building children, it has to be taught how to be productive. I'm teaching you how to be productive. Raising consciousness is like raising children in that it has to be taught how to study what it wants and not study what it does not want. Raising consciousness is like raising children in that it has to honor the discipline of the law because mama said, just wait until daddy gets home. And so it's the same thing with the way we think and we feel. Are you still with me? And so when it comes to giving / tithing, giving / tithing is a spiritual practice. And there is always a demonstration of the supply whenever we practice the law. You still with me? So then if we want to experience the unending flow of God's good, we should be very willing, cheerful givers. You got it. You with me? You got it. You got it. Remember that whenever you are deciding to give or tithe, it is an opportunity to prove God. If I can just give my own personal testimony for just a quick minute, one of the best things that ever happened to me was coming here and learning about the power of giving or tithing, because what it did was it gave me an opportunity in my own life to prove God. See, I don't know if you know about me, but I am unchurched. That means I only came to learn about church really once I got here. So I don't really know a whole lot about how church is or isn't supposed to be. But what I do know based upon what I learned here is that it does work if I know how to work it. Are you still with me? And so when you decide to give, recognize that it is an opportunity to prove God. How does tithing benefit you? For me personally, tithing or giving has transformed the entire way that I see life and experience. I used to be selfish. And I still am from the standpoint that I really love me. I'm crazy about me, y'all. You say you are too? Thank you, I love that. But being a tither, being a giver, has transformed how I have come to see. It has given me insight into this idea that it is really better to give than to receive. Because without no giving. Yeah, come on, you can say it. This is teaching today. Right? I might shout you later on, but this is so important that I want you to get this. I want to be slow and deliberate on this because this is important to you. Whether you realize it or not, this is important to you. And I want to teach this to you because I want you to get it. I want you to be better at 12 o'clock than you are right now in your understanding and in your willingness to give. Because the more you give, the more you open. Yeah, come on, say it. Come on, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just shout it out if you know it. Yeah. The more you give, the more you receive. Just shout it out if you know it. If you get it wrong, just point to your neighbor. Look at him real funny, like, you don't know nothing. You've been here this long, you don't know nothing. So we start the flow of the good and unlimited support that we are entitled to through our giving. Understand this. Though it is God's will that you experience the support and the flow, you have to, through your understanding, initiate that flow through the way you give. So don't simply pray that God will give if you are not in your soul ready for God to give. And the God that I'm talking about in that latter part is you. Are you with me? So as we are looking at giving, it's good to understand what your motivation is for why you would give. It's good to understand what the benefits of giving or tithing is to you. It's good to understand why you believe it. If you don't understand why you believe it, then the lack of belief will also support the lack of the inability to do it. Are you with me? Because it is done unto us as we what? As we believe. And when we do it, we should do it with the sense and sensibility to whether or not there is proof that it is working. And so any seed that you plant ought to show forth some fruit in the form of a harvest that your sowing was worthwhile. It is not the will of God that you should give and not receive back more than what you gave. And so wherever you are giving to, whatever you are giving to, hear me, whether it's your tithe or you're giving through your church, whether it's your time, your energy and effort on your job, whether it is your sleepless nights to your business, or whether it's a relationship that you are working in and through, there ought to be some fruit on the other side of your giving. If there is no proof that your giving is working, reevaluate what you're giving to. Are you with me? But if you want to receive, you have to be willing to give. And so I won't read it from the book. I'll just go from here. On step 10, we say if you want to receive, you have to be willing to give. But then giving is just as important as receiving. And so not only ought we be a cheerful givers, we also have to learn to be grateful receivers. Are you with me? One of the chief concerns I have, and I'm gonna put all of us on spot, is that there are many of us who work in serving capacities. And oftentimes the research and the psychology suggests that those of us who work in serving capacities don't always know how to be good receivers. Ministers, teachers, social workers, we don't always know how to be good receivers because we know how to give and pour out, but we don't always know how to open ourselves up to let somebody else pour in. But I got news for you. If you never allow yourself to be filled back up through what somebody else will give you, not only are you interrupting their flow and their blessing, you are also limiting what you can give because an empty pot cannot fill anything up. And so I just want to challenge us, those of us who have committed our lives to service, to just make sure, and that's for anybody anywhere. Moms and dads, serve. Children, serve. Right? When my mom called me from downstairs up to the 5th floor to say, come get the remote control, that's got to be service. And I don't care what you're doing, you come get the remote control when I call you. And the remote control was actually my hand turning the channel on TV. So, but there is a cycle. There is a cycle of circulation. It requires both giving and receiving, right? And so giving and receiving blesses both the giver and the receiver. But I do want to just point out to you that there are oftentimes some burdens. There's some burdens with both giving and receiving. There's some burdens with both giving and receiving. If you have not yet developed the consciousness, the thinking ability to want to give, if your faith is not at the level of giving, that can be a burden to you. There's a lot of pressure in sitting in the room like this and the basket come by and everybody drops something in and you, for whatever reason, aren't ready to drop something in. There's a lot of pressure there. And I want to encourage you to lift yourself up, but to not feel guilty about what you can't do in a given moment. Grow, commit yourself to growing, but feeling guilt does not fix the fact that at this stage you don't have the faith to do what you would like to do. And so I want to just remind you that if you can't do it, it doesn't mean that it can't be done. Nor does it mean that if you can't do what you want to do, you ought to leave. Because sometimes the burden is so heavy that we leave so that we don't have to feel embarrassed. And I'm saying that this is your church. And even if you don't have it today, you had it yesterday. And if you put a brick at any point or anywhere, don't feel guilty about when life throws you a curve and that curve you can't hit at the moment. Are you with me? Because sometimes two income households become one income households, right? Sometimes one income households become no income households. Sometimes large income households become limited in limit, and I mean limited. I don't mean limited in the true sense. Are you with me? And so I just want to encourage you to not let the barrier of embarrassment of what you can and can't do in a given moment, because seasons change. And just because you couldn't do it today does not mean that you won't be able to do it tomorrow if you will keep the faith, right? If you will walk by faith and not by sight. If you will hold the intention for what you would like to be able to do. There is power in your intention. Are you with me? One of the barriers for the receiver is that the receiver is often just prone to rejecting what's offered. And we can condition ourselves to rejection and rejecting what's offered in the simplest things. Like you spend a whole morning getting yourself ready so that you can come to church with your Sunday best on. And somebody says, "Oh, you look good today. You look beautiful. That red is your color, or that green is your color. Oh, this old thing. I just grabbed something out the closet, threw it on. You know good and well you ain't just grabbed nothing out the closet. That thing been laid out for 4 days. You know when you put it on, you're like, I'm gonna be killing them in this right here. They get ready to be over. Wait till they get a load of me. And then somebody's like, you look good. You're like, I know. Just be able to receive. That's a form of receiving. And if you, here again, remember now, when you don't receive, you are cutting off somebody's blessing. Because the person who wants to encourage you, that might be their gift. That might be the only gift they give on that day. The rest of the day, they might be hell on wheels. That's their one seed for the day. But that seed is enough to produce a harvest. Is that right? And so I just want to encourage you to not let that barrier, the barrier to receive, don't let that be a barrier for you. The other barrier to receiving is condition yourself to no longer see lack in anyone else. This is a barrier to receiving. If you see lack in others, hear me well, put this in your notes. If and when you see lack in others, it is an indication that there is a sense of lack in your soul. What you see in others is not a reflection of them, it's a reflection of you. And so the more clearly and consistently you can see the abundance of God and that flow of support that you know you are entitled to, even if you don't see it for them in the moment, see it for yourself. And if you know that you are entitled to the abundant support and flow of God's good, extend that out to everybody you meet. Don't see lack in anybody, because every time you see it, it's an impression in your own soul. And so no matter what it is they're demonstrating or you're demonstrating, bring yourself back to the study of what it is you want. Are you with me? Step 10 talks about this idea that some people believe that when you give, you should give with no expectation. You should give with no expectation. And then in the chapter, we say that expecting to give with or giving with no expectation to receive in return is inconsistent with the law and activity of God. Do you think that God put all of his best in you so that you can do nothing with it? The universe doesn't waste anything. There will be leaves that fall from these trees that have a purpose after they have fallen from the tree with what they will do to the ground. It's not wasted at all. Is that right? And so if a leaf on a tree, or the least of these, has purpose, then what about you? So I want to just encourage you to remember that expecting to receive is not inconsistent. Rather, expecting to receive on what you give or on your tithe or on your talent, on your service, you have a right to expect to receive from what you give. You have a right to expect that. I like I was just reading somewhere not long ago. It said the way the universe works is that substance does not have to know that you have the expectation in order to create the multiplication. It said when you plant a seed in the soil doesn't know that it's multiplying a seed. It only knows how to multiply a seed. So it doesn't have to know why it is to know how it is. It's the same thing with how we give. And so we have to be willing to approach this giving, this learning to give, or this being reminded about how to give with the right attitude. See, attitude is important. Attitude is important. Legend has it that the Apostle Paul received a parrot as a gift. And the parrot had a bad attitude. The parrot also had a horrible vocabulary. Every word that the bird would say was rude, obnoxious, and often laced with profanity. The Apostle Paul tried to change the bird's attitude by being polite to the bird, by speaking affirmations, by playing classical music, hoping that the bird would eventually change and clean up his act. Finally, the apostle got fed up and yelled at the parrot, and the parrot yelled and cursed back. In desperation, the apostle took the parrot and put him in the freezer, closed the door. And for about a minute, the parrot was squawking and flapping its wings trying to get out. But after a while, the apostle noticed that there was no more commotion in the freezer. And so he opened the door because he was hoping that he hadn't harmed his gift. When he opened the door, the parrot stepped out onto his arm and said, "Dear apostle, I know my behavior has been inappropriate. I want to apologize for just acting up and ugly. Please forgive me, and I promise you that from this moment on, I will do my very best. You won't have a problem out of me again." The apostle was confused and couldn't figure out why the parrot had changed. He had been trying for months to change this parrot. Then, just as the apostle Paul was about to ask the parrot, "Well, what caused you to change?" the parrot said to Paul, "If you don't mind, can I ask what the turkey did?" See, attitude is important. There's a little change in attitude. It's important. And so the attitude of mind with which we approach giving is important. And so I want to offer you that there is an opportunity to approach giving not simply from the standpoint as a discipline. Yes, it is a discipline, but it's also, if you understand it, it's also an opportunity for you to bless. Your giving, your tithing, your service, your time is an opportunity for you to be a blessing. And here is what I want to remind you of, that whenever you bless a thing, that thing increases. And so I just want to, even at the end of this service, when we take up our offering, don't just bless it as a matter of routine. Bless it with the faith and understanding of a farmer who plants a seed and knows that that seed has within it the power and the potential to not only multiply a harvest, but to feed a nation. See, if you really truly understand the law, this is what I really want you to get. I want you to get the understanding of the law and how God is really wanting to work through what you already have. If you will use what you already have, what you will find is that you have more than you had before. Is that right? And so just for the sake of those of us who for whatever reason, we need a place to get in. For those of us who need a place to get in, let me offer this to you as a place to get in for the way you give, the way you tithe. Let me offer this to you. You with me? Yes. Give on the unexpected or the increase. If you are base level, ground level, zero, wanting to become a giver, wanting to become a tither, and not sure about whether or not you have enough to give, let me just offer this to you. Give on the unexpected. Give on the increase. What's the unexpected? Somebody walks up to you, takes $20, says, here, get you some lunch today. You don't spend $20 on the lunch. You spend $18, and the other $2 is what? Your tithe. Your increase is you are a phenomenal manager on your job, and your job says to you, you know what? You've been so great. Your bonus this year is going to be $20,000. That's 20 grand you weren't expecting, right? That's the increase. So on that increase, the $20,000, how much of it would you take to do whatever you were gonna do with? 18,000? Yes, stick with me. Y'all real good over here. Y'all didn't do so good with the math over here. Quick. I used the same number. I just added some more zeros. Right? It's the same thing. I'm right? So if we gave on the increase or on the unexpected, that gives us a place to start. Is that right? Yes. Now, for those of you who already are giving consistently, for those of you who are already giving consistently, but maybe not quite at the tithe level, not quite at the 10% of what your gross is. You with me? I want to encourage you to just give 10% on your net. 10% on your net. What's your net? Your net is what shows up on the bottom of your check after FICA and all them have had their say with it. That's your net. And so if your net pay this week is $20,000, yeah. Let me drop something on you. When Yahoo was changing COOs, they paid the COO that they fired $35 million to leave. So I don't want to hear nobody tell me nothing about there's limitation anywhere, anyhow. You give somebody $35 million to leave, there is no limitation. And, Yahoo traffics information. You traffic transformation. Don't tell me there's not more value in what you present to the world than somebody who can just say, here is what's happening in the world. I can't buy it. You with me? All right? And so for those of you who are ready to take the next step after that, the next step is to give on your gross. So for the gross, for the business owner, for the gross, the deal was for a $500,000. Then $500,000 is what the deal is for. There are probably some expenses related to that. You with me? Don't get quiet on me. Stay with me. I want to teach this. Deal is for a $500,000. There's some expenses related to that $500,000, but you still give on the $500,000. That's the gross of the deal. You with me? And I want to give you an opportunity to prove God herewith. Not only that, because I believe in full disclosure, our ministry has to do better in its giving. We do. And I am committed to our working the law that we know works so that we can prove God herewith and see if it's not true that the windows of heaven will be opened up and blessings will be poured out among all of us that there is not room enough to receive. And so I said it to you a couple weeks ago. I'm saying it to you again. I need to hear from you on the places that we can support, who are doing good work in the world. I want to hear from you because we can do a better job of supporting good work in the world. I believe in supporting people who are a force for good in the world. And I'm asking you to help me do that. I'm asking us to do it together. We can make an impact greater than the impact that is being made to this point. And so I'm committed to this ministry proving the truth that we know. I'm committed to following the guidelines of our founder, who was an incredible, insatiable giver. And I believe we saw the benefit of that fruit through the impact and growth of this ministry. And so I'm on that same page, CUT, and I invite you to be a master and to follow the guidelines as we make greater impact in the world together. God bless you.